Imagine having a superpower that could transform your life overnight. A power that could end arguments before they begin, dissolve stress in seconds, and bring peace to even your most chaotic moments. This power exists, and you already possess it. It's the power of not reacting. Right now, someone somewhere is saying something that will ruin someone else's entire day. A thoughtless comment, a harsh judgment, a careless word. And in that split second between hearing those words and responding to them lies a universe of possibility. What if I told you that mastering that tiny space, that fraction of a second, could completely transform your relationships, your work, your inner peace, and ultimately your life? We all know what it feels like to be hijacked by our emotions. That surge of anger when someone cuts us off in traffic. That knot of anxiety when we receive criticism. That flood of frustration when things don't go as planned. These reactions seem automatic, inevitable, but they're not. The ancient wisdom of Zen masters reveals a different path, a path of freedom and choice, rather than automatic reactions. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 powerful lessons from ancient wisdom that will give you the tools to break free from emotional reactivity and reclaim your inner peace. These aren't complicated techniques that take years to master. They're simple practices you can begin using today, in the very next difficult moment you face. Are you ready to discover the quiet power that lies between what happens to you and how you respond? Let's begin. There's an old story about a wise teacher and a visitor who came seeking knowledge. The teacher invited the visitor for tea and began pouring it into his cup. The cup filled to the brim, but the teacher kept pouring until tea spilled all over the table. Startled, the visitor cried out, "Stop! The cup is already full." The teacher smiled gently and said, "Like this cup, your mind is already full of opinions and preconceptions. How can you learn anything new unless you first empty your cup?" This simple story shows us something important about ourselves. When our minds are already filled with assumptions and judgments, we can't take in new information. We react based on what we already think we know, not what's actually happening in front of us. Our minds work in patterns. Something happens, and we react automatically based on past experiences. Think of it like warm paths in a forest. The more we walk them, the deeper they become. Soon, we're following these emotional pathways without even thinking about it. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic, like a reflex. Responding is thoughtful, like a choice. But why do we react without thinking? Often, it's because our sense of self feels threatened. When someone criticizes us, our ego jumps to defend itself immediately. It's like a shield that pops up before we even consider whether the criticism might be helpful. A young monk once encountered a thief in the monastery garden. Instead of shouting for help or running away, he simply bowed and said, "You must have traveled far and be very tired to come here. Please, take what you need." The thief, confused by this reaction, took nothing and eventually became a student of the monastery. By seeing beyond appearances and not reacting with fear, the monk transformed a potential threat into an opportunity for growth. The first lesson in controlling our emotions is understanding where our reactions come from. By recognizing the patterns of our mind, we can begin to create space between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. Now that we understand where our reactions come from, let's explore something truly magical, that tiny space between what happens to us and how we respond. This space might be just a breath long, but it holds the key to our freedom. The story is told of an old teacher sitting peacefully in the marketplace. A stranger approached him, angry about rumors he had heard. He shouted insults and accusations while a crowd gathered to watch. The teacher remained calm, showing no signs of disturbance. When the angry man finally paused to catch his breath, the teacher asked gently, "May I ask you a question? If someone brings you a gift and you don't accept it, Who does the gift belong to? To the giver, obviously, the man replied, still fuming. That's right, smiled the teacher. And the same is true of your anger and insults. Since I choose not to accept them, they remain with you. Think about that for a moment. The words and actions that upset us are like wrapped packages. We can choose whether to open them and take them in or simply acknowledge them and leave them unopened. This isn't about denying that someone's words can sting. It's about recognizing that we have a choice about how deeply we let them in. So how do we create this magical space? It starts with something so simple, you might be surprised. A single breath. The next time someone says something that would normally set you off, try this. Before you say anything, take one deep breath. Feel the air coming in through your nose, filling your lungs, and then slowly flowing out again. That's it. That one breath is your first step to freedom. This tiny pause gives your thinking mind a chance to catch up with your emotional reaction. It's like pressing a mini reset button, creating just enough distance for you to choose your response instead of being driven by habit. Nature shows us the power of this kind of flexibility. Have you ever watched bamboo in a storm? While stiff trees might crack and fall, bamboo bends with the wind, swaying dramatically but rarely breaking. Its strength isn't in fighting against the storm, but in moving with it. We can cultivate this same flexibility with our emotions, not by fighting against them, but by creating space to work with them. There's a special kind of strength that comes when everyone around you is caught up in emotional chaos, but you remain quiet and centered. In that stillness, you find clarity that others miss in their reactivity. This doesn't mean you never speak up. Sometimes your voice is exactly what's needed. But when you speak from that quiet center rather than from automatic reaction, your words carry a different weight and wisdom. The teacher once told a student who was always quick to argue, the space between being triggered and responding is where your freedom lives. Make that space bigger, even just by a moment, and watch how your life transforms. Now that we've created that precious space between what happens to us and how we respond, let's explore how to fill that space with wisdom instead of just habit. Watch how water meets a rock in its path. Does it get angry? Does it give up? No. Water simply finds another way forward. It flows around obstacles without drama or complaint, continuing its journey to the ocean. Nature shows us that there's a way to move through life's challenges without fighting against what we cannot change. The first step in transforming reactions to responses is accepting what is happening. The teacher told a frustrated student who was upset about the rain ruining a planned ceremony. We don't have to like it. We don't have to agree with it. But fighting against what already is only creates more suffering. This acceptance isn't giving up. It's simply acknowledging reality before deciding what to do next. It's raining is a fact. This rain is terrible and has ruined everything is a reaction. Starting with simple acceptance gives us solid ground to stand on. A young monk struggled with anger that seemed to overwhelm him. His teacher took him to a hillside on a partly cloudy day and asked, "What do you see in the sky?" "Clouds," replied the monk. "And what else?" "Blue sky between the clouds." The teacher nodded. Your anger is like those clouds, sometimes dark and stormy, sometimes light, but always moving and changing. But you are not those clouds. You are the vast sky through which they pass. This simple comparison contains deep wisdom. Our emotions, whether anger, fear, joy, or jealousy, are like weather passing through us. They are real experiences, but they are not our true nature. Just as the sky isn't damaged by storms passing through it, our true self remains whole, regardless of what emotions visit us. Watching feelings pass through us without becoming them gives us freedom. We can say, "I notice anger arising," instead of "I am angry." This small shift in perspective creates room to choose how we'll respond. There's a story of a feared criminal who heard about a meditation master and decided to test him. He stormed into the master's home with his hand on his sword, expecting fear or resistance. Instead, the master looked up calmly and said, "Welcome, friend. I've been expecting you. Would you like some tea?" Completely thrown off guard, the criminal couldn't maintain his anger in the face of such unexpected kindness. They talked until dawn, and by morning, the criminal had become a student, asking to learn the secret of such fearlessness. Responding with kindness when faced with hostility is perhaps the most powerful transformation of all. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or accepting abuse. It means recognizing that behind every angry word or harmful action is a person who is suffering in some way. This understanding allows us to address the behavior clearly and firmly, but without adding more anger to the situation. Meet force with flexibility, meet hatred with compassion, meet fear with courageous presence, the teacher would often say. This is how we break the endless cycles of reaction that keep us trapped. We've explored the roots of our reactions, discovered the space between stimulus and response, and learned how to transform reactions into wise responses. But how do we build these skills in everyday life? The answer lies in simple practices that anyone can do, starting today. Imagine you're a mountain. On the surface, weather constantly changes. Sunny skies, thunderstorms, snow, and fog come and go. But deep inside, the mountain remains steady, unchanged by these passing conditions. This is the mountain meditation, a practice of finding your own unshakable center. Sit comfortably and picture yourself as a mountain. The teacher instructed a group of restless students. Feel your solid base connected to the earth. Now, as thoughts and feelings arise, watch them like weather moving around the mountain. They come, they go, but the mountain remains. You don't need hours for this practice. Even 5 minutes each morning can help you develop the habit of watching your thoughts without being carried away by them. With time, this awareness naturally extends into daily life, helping you stay centered even during emotional storms. Another helpful practice is tracking what sets off your reactions. A young monk was constantly frustrated with an elder who corrected him during ceremonies. The teacher gave him a small notebook and said, "For 1 week, write down every time you feel reactive. Note what happened, what you felt in your body, and what thoughts arose." By the week's end, the monk saw a pattern. He reacted most strongly not to the corrections themselves, but to feeling publicly embarrassed. This discovery helped him respond more skillfully. Try this yourself. Get a small notebook and notice when you feel that familiar surge of reactivity. Is it certain people? Specific situations? Particular words or tones of voice? By mapping these triggers, you begin to see patterns. You might notice you're more reactive when tired or hungry, or that certain old wounds get activated in specific situations. This isn't about judging yourself for having triggers. We all have them. It's about shining a light on what was hidden. With each trigger you identify, ask yourself with curiosity, what am I really feeling here? What old story might be playing out? This kind of investigation turns triggers from hidden traps into doorways for growth. Ancient archers were taught to see beyond the target, to be aware of the entire field while maintaining focus. In the same way, we can practice looking beyond our first interpretation of events. When something happens that sparks an emotional reaction, train yourself to pause and ask, what other ways could I see this situation? What might I be missing? A merchant accused a young apprentice of stealing money. The apprentice's first thought was to defend himself angrily. Instead, he took a breath and considered, perhaps the merchant is afraid of losing his business. Maybe someone else took the money, or it was misplaced. This second look led him to respond with calm understanding rather than defensive anger. Later, the money was found under a basket where the merchant had absent-mindedly placed it. The practice of the second look frees us from the prison of a single perspective the teacher explained. When we can see a situation from multiple angles, we find freedom to respond wisely rather than react blindly. We've come to perhaps the most challenging and rewarding area to practice non-reactivity: our relationships with others. Our daily connections with family, friends, coworkers, and even strangers offer countless opportunities to practice everything we've learned. Two students were arguing about a teaching when an elder monk approached. The first student explained his view passionately, already forming counter-arguments in his mind while his friend was speaking. The second student truly listened, setting aside his own thoughts to understand his friend. After they finished, the elder asked each to repeat what the other had said. Only the second student could answer correctly. "You cannot truly hear while preparing your response," the elder explained gently. "Real listening requires an empty cup." Most of us listen with one ear while preparing what to say next. But genuine listening means temporarily setting aside our own thoughts to fully take in what someone else is saying. This is especially important during conflicts. When someone is upset with us, our natural instinct is to defend or explain. But often, what's needed first is to truly hear them. Next time you're in a difficult conversation, try this. Focus completely on understanding the other person before thinking about your response. Ask questions to make sure you've got it right. This simple practice can transform arguments from battles into bridges. When we do need to express difficult feelings, there's a skill we can learn from a teacher who was confronted by an angry student. Instead of becoming defensive, the teacher said, "When I called on others more frequently today, you felt overlooked. You need recognition and fair treatment. Would you like me to be more mindful of balancing participation?" Notice the 4 parts of this approach: saying what happened without blame, expressing feelings, identifying needs, and making a clear request. When meetings run late, I feel anxious because I need to pick up my child. Would you be willing to set a timer to help us end on time? This way of speaking takes responsibility for our feelings while making clear requests instead of demands or accusations. A critic who came to find fault with a meditation center was so moved by being addressed this way that he eventually became one of its strongest supporters. A wise garden designer understood that each element affects all others. The placement of rocks influences where water flows, which determines which plants thrive. Similarly, our responses in one relationship affect the entire network of our connections. Every interaction sends ripples far beyond what we can see. The teacher explained to a student who questioned why he remained patient with a particularly difficult person. "By remaining steady with this one person, I strengthen my capacity to remain steady with all people." The practice of non-reactivity in relationships doesn't mean becoming passive or hiding your true thoughts. Instead, it means communicating from a place of clarity rather than habit, speaking truth with kindness and listening with an open heart, even when it's difficult. As the ancient teaching says, "Watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, for they shape your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny." We've journeyed together through the 5 powerful lessons of non-reactivity, understanding our emotional patterns, creating space between stimulus and response, transforming reactions into wise responses, practicing daily techniques, and applying these skills to our most important relationships. Remember, this isn't about perfection. Even the most experienced practitioners still react sometimes. The path of non-reactivity is a lifelong journey of growing awareness, one moment at a time. I invite you to try just one practice from today's video this week. Perhaps the single breath before responding, or truly listening in your next difficult conversation. Small steps lead to profound changes over time. If you found value in these teachings, please consider subscribing to our channel for more wisdom from ancient traditions brought into everyday life. And if you know someone who might benefit from these practices, perhaps someone facing challenges with emotional reactions, sharing this video could be a meaningful gift to them. In the comments below, I'd love to hear which practice resonates most with you, or any questions you have about applying these techniques in your life. Thank you for your presence and attention. Until next time, may you find that precious space between stimulus and response, where your true freedom lives.